Have you ever felt like everything you've been told was a carefully built illusion? That may be one of the most shocking events in pop culture history. Tupac Shakur's death wasn't the end of his story, but the beginning of a cover-up. For almost 3 decades, fans, journalists, and conspiracy hunters have asked the same haunting question. What if Tupac never really died? The official story is simple. On September 7, 1996, Tupac was shot in Las Vegas while riding with Suge Knight. He was rushed to the hospital, survived for 6 days, and then died on September 13th. Case closed. At least that's what the headlines told us. But look closer, and cracks appear everywhere. The coroner's report listed the wrong height and weight. The autopsy photo looked more like a fake magazine cover than an official document. The cremator who supposedly handled Tupac's body? Gone. Retired overnight with a massive payout, leaving no trail behind. It felt less like reality and more like a Hollywood script. Now, decades later, with Diddy facing federal raids, lawsuits, and whispers of criminal enterprises, a new theory is spreading like wildfire. Tupac didn't just fake his death. He may have staged the ultimate vanishing act, not only to escape but to turn Diddy into the perfect villain. Imagine it, the greatest twist in rap history. Tupac disappears, the world blames Diddy, and years later, the truth emerges, rewriting everything we thought we knew. But let's rewind to the 1990s. This wasn't just a music rivalry, it was a cultural battlefield. On the East Coast, Diddy was building Bad Boy Records into a billion-dollar empire with the notorious B.I.G. as his crown jewel. On the West Coast, Tupac and Suge Knight ran Death Row, a powerhouse that terrified the industry with its influence. The East-West rivalry wasn't just about lyrics or beats. It was about money, control, and power over an entire generation. So when Tupac was gunned down in Vegas, people immediately connected the dots. Was this revenge for Biggie's shooting? Was it gang retaliation? Or was it something deeper? Something orchestrated by men in boardrooms who had more to lose than any gang on the street? Whispers began pointing at Diddy. Some insiders believed Tupac had uncovered financial secrets, millions siphoned through shell companies, royalties hidden in offshore accounts, and deals that could expose Bad Boy's darker side. Tupac had hinted in interviews that he had information powerful enough to destroy certain people in the industry. To his fans, those sounded like angry words. To the people running the business, they sounded like a threat. Now, imagine being Tupac in 1996. Betrayed, paranoid, aware that enemies weren't just pointing guns in alleys, but shaking hands in skyscrapers. What would you do? Some believe Tupac staged his own death as the ultimate chess move. He vanishes, lets Diddy's empire drown in suspicion, and waits in silence for the truth to surface. And then there's Suge Knight, sitting right next to Tupac when the bullets flew, yet barely touched. Not a scratch. Years later, Suge gave interviews that fueled the fire. At one point, he said, "You never saw Tupac in a funeral, did you?" A cryptic comment that didn't sound like grief. It sounded like a man hiding something. The evidence kept piling up. The autopsy, sloppy and full of errors. The hospital stay, 6 days of silence, no photos, no credible witnesses. The cremation, rushed within 24 hours, no viewing, no family statements. Each piece on its own might be dismissed as coincidence. Together, it looks like a script, plan. And as Diddy's empire expanded, so did the rumors. They said Tupac's disappearance wasn't random. It was deliberate, orchestrated, and tied to forces much bigger than rap beef. Because behind the music was something far more powerful. Politics, revolutionary movements, and a family legacy tied to the Black Panthers. That's where the story takes a darker turn. Because if Tupac really did survive, he didn't do it alone. He had help. And one name keeps coming up, a man who claimed to know exactly how it all went down. Michael Nice. Michael Nice wasn't just a random name pulled out of thin air. He was a former British security officer who later claimed he had worked with intelligence networks, revolutionary groups, and underground movements. According to him, Tupac Shakur didn't die in Las Vegas. Instead, he was rescued, hidden, and flown out of the country under a secret operation involving the Black Panthers. Now, why the Panthers? because Tupac's family roots ran deep into that movement. His mother, Afeni Shakur, was a Panther. His stepfather, Mutulu Shakur, was connected to Panther activism. To many, Tupac wasn't just a rapper, he was the heir to a revolutionary bloodline. And revolutions don't die easily. If the system wanted him silenced, then it makes sense that the very movement he inherited would ensure his survival. Michael Nice claimed that, on the night of the shooting, there was a plan already in motion. Tupac was never supposed to ride unprotected, but chaos erupted quickly. Shots rang out, but according to Nice, a decoy was used, a body double who took the attention while the real Tupac was rushed into a different vehicle. From there, he was allegedly taken to a private airstrip outside Las Vegas, flown to Barbados, and then moved again to Cuba. It sounds like a movie script, doesn't it? But then you realize many of the details match the things that confused investigators. Why were there no clear photos of Tupac in the hospital? Why was the autopsy such a mess? Why was the cremation rushed with no public funeral? These were not the actions of a grieving family. These were the actions of people moving fast, covering tracks, and making sure no one could follow. Michael Nice even described the jet that carried Tupac away. He said it was small, unmarked, and operated by people who had no official records. He explained how documents were altered, how false names were used, and how Cuban authorities allowed the arrival of a high-profile guest who had political asylum. Remember, Cuba had a long history of welcoming American dissidents, revolutionaries, and those fleeing U.S. law. Could Tupac have been one of them? For years, Nice stuck by his story. He even claimed that he met Tupac in Cuba, alive, breathing, and free. According to him, Tupac was tired of the constant chaos of fame. He wanted peace, wanted a chance to live without being hunted by record executives, police, and enemies. Imagine Tupac in Havana, walking streets where no paparazzi could find him, writing music not for the charts but for his own soul. But then something strange happened. Just as Michael Nice was about to present proof of Tupac's survival, he died suddenly of a heart attack in 2018. The timing was suspicious. A man who promised to bring forward evidence dies right before releasing it? To conspiracy theorists, that wasn't coincidence, it was silencing. Still, small signs kept emerging. Tourists in Cuba claimed they saw someone who looked exactly like Tupac, down to the tattoos. A blurry video surfaced online showing a man resembling him dancing at a Cuban nightclub. Photos circulated of a man with Tupac's jawline, beard, and signature bandana. Each time, the mainstream media called them fakes. But each time, fans whispered, "What if?" The escape theory gained more power as Diddy's legal troubles mounted. People began asking, if Tupac really survived, then maybe his plan was bigger than survival. Maybe it was revenge by absence. Think about it, Tupac disappears, leaving the world to blame Diddy, Suge, and the East Coast machine. Meanwhile, Tupac watches from the shadows as the empire crumbles under its own corruption. And this is where the conspiracy takes its sharpest turn. Some believe Tupac wasn't just escaping. He was preparing. That in Cuba, he recorded music, wrote journals, and gathered proof of the industry's darkest secrets. Imagine hidden vaults filled with unreleased songs, letters exposing betrayals, and files that connect Diddy to far more than just a rap feud. If that evidence exists, it could explain why silence was forced on anyone who got too close. Journalists turned up dead. Witnesses recanted their stories. Michael Nice conveniently died. Even Suge Knight, before landing in prison, hinted that Tupac was alive but stopped short of saying more. Why? Because saying more could mean ending up the same way as Nice, silenced before the truth was spoken. There's also the financial side of the puzzle. After Tupac's death, his estate kept releasing music, albums, documentaries, and merchandise. Millions flowed in every year. But who was really collecting it? Sure, his mother Afeni managed much of the estate, but conspiracy theorists suggest there were secret accounts, royalties diverted into unknown hands, and money trails that didn't add up. If Tupac was alive, this could have been his hidden lifeline. Millions funneled quietly while the world believed he was gone. Think about the genius of it. By vanishing, Tupac not only escaped danger, but he also created a legacy that grew even bigger in absence. His albums sold more after his death than before it. His name became legendary. And if he truly lived in Cuba, he wasn't just safe. He was funded by the very industry that thought they had erased him. The more you study it, the more one chilling idea takes hold. Maybe the greatest rapper of all time didn't just fake his death. Maybe he staged the greatest performance in hip-hop history.